Welcome to How to Be a Person, a podcast about life, with me, your host, Giuliano Grimaudo. Catherine, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. A little cold, but good.
Glad to hear it. The first thing I wanted to point out was your last name is one of my grandfather's first names.
Yeah, I'm Italian by choice, to be honest.
By choice? Wait, what does that mean?
It means I've married an Italian 33 years ago.
I see. Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Most people know this if they're listening, but we don't meet beforehand. So this is my first time meeting you. I'd love to know more about you, and I'm sure everyone listening would like to know more about you too.
Well, I am the author of 12 books, slight bit of an overachiever. I am credited with being one of the founders of the independent concierge industry, and I did that for over 20 years and retired in 2020. And now I'm focused on other types of books. I've written business books, but now I'm focused on other types of books. And my latest is a book on forgiveness.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. So, first of all, before we get into that though, I hope I'm not the first person to what is the independent concierge business? I don't know what that is at all. Can you explain it?
Yeah, most people have heard of a concierge in a hotel.
Yeah.
He's right by the bell desk, right by the valet. Well, a group of hotel concierge about 25 years ago said, if I can do this at a hotel, I bet I can do this to mainstream America. So they did. So an independent concierge will do anything on Google as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical. And the difference between them and Uber Eats and all these delivery services is that these people are vetted and they check their background and that kind of thing. So instead of calling 20 different people, you just call your concierge, which is another name for a personal assistant. Okay. And you can find them in most every city around the country.
Okay, super interesting. And so when you say, because I know that you've written 12 books now, which is
I have.
That's crazy. It's crazy amazing. But did you say a majority of them are business related then?
Half are business related. The concierge manual I put out my 6th and final edition because I've retired from the industry, and I have a couple of customer service books. And then I have a couple of books that are out of print, which I'm rewriting. And then I have some good for you books, a book that teaches you how to tap into your intuition called The Little Bird in Your Shoulder. I have a book that talks about the breast cancer that I beat, which is Rainbows and Banana Peels. And then my latest one, which is The Ultimate Path to Forgiveness.
Wow.
That adds up to 12 at some point.
That's amazing though. So I want to comment on that because I think obviously it's a big deal to write a dozen books, but also the fact that they kind of cover such a wide range of topics. I love that because that's kind of how I envision, because I'm writing a book right now, and that's kind of how I envision my path too. There's a book I'm writing currently, but I also have other books that I want to write that are not 100% the same topic or even the same line of thought as the first one. And so that's reassuring to hear that other authors have done that too, just kind of jumped around to different subjects.
Let me give you a hint when you're writing a book. One of my books, Rainbows and Banana Peels, is about my cancer journey. And I actually wrote that on my smartphone in a chemo chair.
Really?
And when I'm writing, a lot of people think you have to come up with the title and then you have to go to chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, but that's not how I fly. It comes into my head and I'll jot it down. If I'm somewhere, I will speak it into my phone or I'll email myself and I'll write a paragraph. And then I'll come to my office and maybe I'll spend 2 hours writing. And whatever I'm writing, it may or may not be chapter 1. I could be writing chapter 12. Sure. And then when I think I finished everything, then I put it all together in a book. So as you're wandering around, I know you're an Uber driver, as you think of things, just email yourself stuff. And eventually you can just put it together, like a puzzle at the end.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice.
It's kind of my process.
Yeah. I'm curious, as far as the wide range of topics that you've covered in your books, was that kind of part of your vision from the beginning? Did you know you were going to jump to different topics, or did you just write what you felt compelled to, or what your intuition told you to do?
I have a high tolerance to pain, let's just say. And I figure I go through all these crazy things, and I'm 63 now, and there's a lot of water under my bridge from a troubled childhood with 2 alcoholic parents, and I tried to commit suicide in the 8th grade, to breast cancer, to everything in between. And I figure if I go through this stuff and get through to the other side, I write about it because I think somebody out there, maybe they could be helped by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my life is kind of an open book at this point, literally.
Literally. Well, first of all, I think that's amazing. I feel like in life you go through experiences, and part of showing appreciation for the experiences that you've been through, because without getting into too much detail, I would say that I've been through a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah.
And I still look back at it and appreciate it, even though it was really hard in the moment. It's part of what's made me who I am. And so, to then backtrack, I believe that part of appreciating what you've been through is sharing your story, sharing what you've learned.
That's right.
With other people. So I think that's it's really cool that you took your experiences and you did that. And I will say too, obviously you have all these books written, right? So like, people should go read your books. But I'm also just curious, like, before we talk about like the book that you have out right now about forgiveness, is there anything like from your other books that maybe you'd like to share? Because, and I mean specifically on the topic of, let's say, going through difficulty and then coming out on the other end like you, like a published 12 books. Because there's a lot of people who've gone through stuff and then they don't do that, right? And there's no judgment, right? Everyone's gonna chart their own path, and they're on their own journey. But I could see someone listening and maybe they're like, I've been through stuff, but it's just at this point, like, for me, it holds me back, or like they just let it define them. So I'm just like curious if you have anything to say about that before we jump into the, your newest book.
When I was growing up, I used to, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, my family has mostly passed away, so I can get away with talking like this. When I was growing up, I listened respectfully to my parents, figuring they knew what they were doing. And I listened respectfully to the teachers in the 70s and, 60s. And what I've learned along the way is to trust your gut. Because if you're listening to something and you know with every fiber of your being that it's not right, but you're thinking, it's coming out of this trusted source, I really should be listening. Maybe they know more than me. They don't. The little bird in your shoulder can see farther faster than anybody else. And I listen to I'm very intuitive, like really intuitive.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I always thought, if I just do the opposite of what my parents tell me to do, I should be fine. Now that would have been great advice for an adult, but not to a 12-year-old kid. Adults don't like that when you're 12. So it got me labeled a rebel because I was right, but I wasn't right. In the 60s and 70s, children should be seen and not heard. Thank you very much. So it got me into a heck of a lot of trouble, even though I was right. I used to look at my math teachers and say, I'm never going to use this stuff in the real world, and I'm not going to use Latin. I was right. They just didn't like to hear it.
Interesting.
So when your gut, let's see, somebody, let's say you hire somebody or you let somebody into your life. And 2 months from now, you say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Everybody on the planet has said that to themselves. I knew I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
That's your gut. That's the gut check you need. When your gut says, don't do that, don't dismiss it.
Man, I love that so much. It's so funny. Based on what you said before about knowing that I'm an Uber driver, I'm assuming you listened to my intro episode. So I've recorded about a handful of episodes since I relaunched the podcast, and I feel like every person that's come on, we end up talking about something that like has been on my mind recently. And so I just love it. It's like super validating. But just in talking about intuition, That's something that's like really been on my mind lately. And like what you said about trusting your gut, the way I phrase it is trusting yourself,
Exactly.
because I was kind of like, so I'm not, you said it before we got started, how many, you're like, I'm 300 years older than you. But like, so we weren't raised at the same time.
Possibly.
Right? We don't know. Give or take. We don't know.
But like energy attracts like energy. So we,
Sure.
it's that kind of thing. Age doesn't really mean anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, I mentioned the age to say that even though we weren't raised at the same time, um, I will say that I felt similar pressures, right? Where you're like,
Sure you did.
Other people, and if this is normal, right? I'm not saying,
Yeah.
well, it was me, right? I feel like everyone goes through this. It's part of how like the entire system is built, right? Is like you're taught from a very young age not to trust yourself. You're taught to trust the authority figures in your life.
Exactly.
I know better than you. Right?
Exactly.
Like from when you're a kid to when you go to school to when you go to work, like you're constantly taught, for lack of a better phrase, to betray yourself. Right?
You're
like,
not, when you exercise a little bit of intuition and you go against the maze and you go against the grain and you think, no, this isn't right, and I know I need to go to the right. The minute you show a little bit of intuition, society will slap a "she's crazy" as a bedbug sticker right across her face. I kept my intuition secret for almost 50 years because I didn't want to be stuffed into a box. And I knew that the minute I expressed how intuitive I really am, people would label me as crazy. My parents would put me on meds and I would be in a psych ward. That's how it was in the 70s.
Well,
But
I mean,
today,
yeah, you're totally right.
yeah, today you would think we would have, as a society, grown from that, but we haven't.
Yeah.
We still look at intuitive people like a car, no disrespect to car people, but with like a grifter who's going to sell you something and take your money.
Sure.
Everybody on the planet is intuitive. You either see it, feel it, know it, or you just sense it.
Yeah.
If I hadn't listened to the little bird on my shoulder, I'd be dead. Because in 2011, I just all of a sudden heard, you need to start to jog. And I've been hearing the voice in my head for many, many years. And you can call it God, your higher self, spirit. You could call it angels. I don't care what you call it. But I ignored it because I said, well, I'm allergic to exercise. Don't want to jog. But I couldn't get it out of my head. You got to run. You got to run. You got to run. I couldn't get out of my head. And I couldn't get it to shut up. So I started the Couch to 5K running program, which is actually a brilliant program, which is right online, that literally does exactly what you think it does. And I eventually ran a 5K. Okay, I half walked it, but I did it. And I went from a size 16 down to an 8, and I knew the weight was coming off too quick. And when I got down to the 8, we found a lump, stage 3 breast cancer. And the surgeon said if I hadn't started to run, it was at a very strange place, I would be dead.
It wouldn't have revealed itself.
It would not have. Then you can fast forward to 2 years ago. We were thinking we wanted to downsize and move to another house. And I live in North Carolina. So we decided, well, maybe we want to move to the mountains of North Carolina because they're beautiful. So we went to the mountains. We looked it out. We went to Asheville. Beautiful people, beautiful place. But it felt off. And I wanted to like it. I saw some houses that I liked. I wanted to like it with all my heart, but it felt off. And I looked at my husband. We've been together a long time. I said, no. And he said, why? And I said, it just feels wrong.
Yeah.
So we moved to the beach.
Okay.
And about recently, a hurricane went through Asheville and demolished everything, including the house that we probably would have bought.
Yeah. I'm curious. So, like,
trust your gut.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for somebody who's okay, this is really interesting. So, my question to you then, because I think this is important to address, because it's probably what other people is popping in their head too. So, are you saying then that the people whose houses were destroyed by that hurricane, is it because they didn't listen to their intuition? Like, was their intuition trying to tell them they shouldn't be there either, or what?
I have no idea.
I'm just curious how you justify it, right? Because I get where you're coming from, and I agree. Like I have seen for myself, I've been really trying to practice it more lately, and I've seen how things work out when I listen to that voice. And I guess what I'm not asking you in a combative way. I'm also asking myself, right? Like, how do I justify that?
I can't, to be honest. Okay. Everybody has their own unique path.
Sure.
Why did I get breast cancer and somebody else didn't?
Good point.
Because
Great point.
that was the path I had to take.
Yeah.
And I have been the first one to say, as crazy as this sounds, it was the best thing that probably ever happened to me. The silver lining is when you walk into a storm, you are not the same person coming out of that storm. When you have dinner with the Grim Reaper and you don't go home with the guy, it changes you. So why did it happen to them? I don't know, but I can promise you whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger because you have a different perspective of life.
Absolutely.
And everybody has a different life plan and everybody has a different reason for being here. And their reason was whatever their reason was.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't answer that one.
I get, and I just wanted to hear what your best answer was. So, what's interesting about that, because I I totally agree with you. Like I said, I can look back on some of the things that I've been through and I could say the same thing. Well, why that? But I also like wouldn't want it to change. Like everything
here's
that I've been
the
through has made me who I am.
I don't believe in failure. I never did.
Okay.
Because if failure gets me going in the direction I should have been going all along, then I didn't really fail. So in my world, you either win or you grow. Those are the only two things. You win or you grow.
Yeah.
And when life, I can't control what life throws at me because I can't, but I can control how I get through it.
Yeah. So for somebody who's listening and maybe isn't like, they're like intuition, what is that about? Like, who is it? Who's telling me this? What is my intuition? Why should I bother listening to my intuition? Like, don't you know 1 + 1 is 2? Like, what do you have to say? That, because that's not me. Just to be clear, I'm very open minded and I actually love this. And like I said, I've been digging into the whole concept of intuition lately. But I can see someone listening and being like, "This sounds weird." What do you say to people like that?
They use their intuition when they listen to your show. They could have chosen to do all sorts of things, but their gut told them to log on to the computer and listen to your show at exactly this moment, at exactly this time. So what is that? Is that coincidence, which I don't believe in? Or is that your intuition and somebody, something giving you a little shove?
It's a great answer because I agree with you. Okay, so this is another question then having to do. Sorry, I know you came on to talk about your newer book, but I want to talk about this. I want to talk about intuition. So, like, if someone's like, well, what, why, where, I'm not saying that they're questioning it in general. It's like, okay, fine, I should listen to my intuition. What's the point of listening to your intuition? And like, maybe where is it coming from?
Doesn't matter where it's coming from, does it? The little bird in your shoulder, you can call it anything you like. I don't care what you call it.
Yeah.
You can call it God. You can call it Jesus. You can call it Tom, Dick, Harry, or Mary. I don't care what you call it. You could call it angels, spirit guides, but it can see farther, faster than you can. And everybody has their intuition. You walk into a room and it just feels wrong. You don't know why.
Yeah.
Or you eat something, you're thinking, this isn't right.
Yeah.
It's not right. Everybody's done that.
Yeah.
Or you just get this urge to go someplace. You have no idea why you're there. And you go to a different Starbucks and you meet the perfect person and have the perfect conversation. That's intuition. People either see it, know it, feel it, or sense it. Some people see the answers. Some people feel the answers. They'll walk in and the vibe is wrong. It just feels wrong. You know, and they'll do it anyways. And then they'll say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I know I shouldn't have done that. Or their gut will tell them, they'll just get this urge to call their Aunt Martha at the exact moment, at the exact time that they needed to be called. Trust your gut. They can see farther than you can. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like part of the reason I asked too is I could see someone being like, well, I listened to my gut and it didn't work out. And and my answer to that is like, how do you know?
How do you know?
How do you know it didn't work out?
Exactly
like,
right.
You don't know what would have happened otherwise, like ultimately. And also your life's not over yet. So how do you know it didn't, how you know what that happened isn't causing a ripple effect that's going to make something work out for you later that you have no clue about.
And maybe you needed to learn that particular thing so you could do something 2 years from now. You don't know.
Yeah. So
you don't know.
One of the things you said, you're like, see, know, hear, you were listing them.
And
but
feel.
It sounds specific.
It is.
Those sound like specific. Can you expand a little bit?
Clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairaudience, and clairsentience, if you want the fancy scientific thing.
Sure.
Clairvoyance is not a Stephen King thing, but can you imagine your childhood bedroom in your mind right now?
Yeah.
Can you see the color of the walls?
Yeah.
That's clairvoyance.
Okay.
It means you see the answers.
You can see it in your head.
Your intuition shows you in your head or in the world around you. You're driving and you notice something about your passenger. Maybe they're ill. Maybe it's something that they said, but you've noticed it. That's how you see the world. I see the world by hearing. I hear the answers. So I actually hear voices in my head. And in the 1970s, they would have put a straitjacket on me. So I kept quiet. And the bullies would have stuffed me into a locker. No. I became the queen of giving people messages, and you didn't know I was giving you a message. I did it for 30 years.
Really?
And then you've got the people who feel it. They're very empathic, and they just feel their way through life. They literally can, and they can always spot a liar, and they're always right because they can feel it. And then you've got the claircognizance people who just know it, and they're very intelligent. And one minute they don't know it, and then the next minute they just do. That's how they see the life. Then there's actually like 12 of them, but there's 4 main ones that. And if you're really interested, you could go to the little bird on my shoulder. It's a book I wrote about it. But everybody on the planet is intuitive. Everybody.
Yeah,
if you weren't intuitive, you wouldn't be listening to this broadcast right now.
Sure. Yeah, and I asked you to expand because I know those things, but I wanted other people to hear it too, and because I've been exploring it as well, and I'm like, I think mine is like just knowing. I don't know where it comes from. Sometimes you just
know it, and you're always right. And it's also, you probably
don't tell my wife that.
No, but my son does that, and he gets what we call the dad voice or the mama voice. It's like the don't bleep with me voice. I'm trying to be polite.
Sure.
I live with an Italian from Hoboken, so yeah. Don't F with me, that kind of thing. And it's just this feeling, I know I'm right. Don't argue. And it's like, how do you know? Don't worry about it. Just do it. Those are the, and it's called clear knowing people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody can do it. Everybody has a different method. We are not meant to be down here all by our lones, just figuring it out alone. We're meant to have help. Yeah. We're not meant to be living in a refrigerator box on the street. We're meant to live in joy. We're meant to live in all of this stuff. Yeah. We're not meant to walk around in anger and hate. We live in a very angry world, and there's another way to live out there.
Sure. I'm curious, because before you said, some people might call it God, some people might call it your spirit guides, some people call it whatever. I'm curious, as to what you believe it is.
I usually believe that it's my higher self talking to me, to be honest.
Okay, interesting. And so then what does that mean for what life is?
Your higher self is like your soul. It's the higher version of you. Yeah. I think I have also been known to call it God. I have also been known to call them angels. It kind of depends on my mood and what I'm doing, to be honest. But whatever it is, they've saved my life 4 times. Not that I'm counting particularly, but they have.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember once I was walking my dog Maggie, who passed a couple of years ago, but we were walking across the street and I heard as loud as I've heard anything in my life, she's not going to stop. Okay, I was 60 at the time, and I thought, okay, so I stopped on a dime in the middle of the intersection. Yeah. Sure enough, some young woman ran the stop sign and just came. She would have killed both of us if I hadn't stopped exactly at that time.
Yeah.
Now, I have a friend of mine had a son who was very intuitive, and she told me he came home from school really upset. And I said, why was he upset? She said, because he tried to get the test answers, but they wouldn't give him the test answers. Doesn't work that way. We've all tried to get the lottery numbers, trust me, and it doesn't work like that.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, though. I would guess, and I mean, I'm asking because you've probably had conversations with a lot of people about this. I would guess that most people are probably jealous of having the one with the voice because I sit here, I'm like, sometimes I feel like I don't know, like, and I'm kind of like, man, I'm not sure, like, what is it? Like, is it this? Am I this? I'm like not 100% certain. But if I heard a voice saying like that person's not going to stop, right? It's like this doesn't get clearer than that.
I could teach you how to do that. It's like playing the game of golf. We're not all, we all have our own gifts, but
Yeah,
we're not all going to be Tiger Woods, but we can all learn how to play the game.
I like that.
So tonight, get a pad of paper and a pen, not
Okay.
your computer, not your phone. There's been
Okay.
studies done that has proven something magical happens when it goes from your brain down your arm to the actual pen and paper.
Sure.
And I want you to empty your mind. A lot of
Yeah.
people can't meditate. I actually don't want you to meditate. I just want you to be alone. And I just want you to just be for a minute.
Yeah.
Let your mind go wherever it wants to go. I don't care. Let it think about the load of laundry you have to do. I really don't care. Wherever it goes. And then I want you to just write down whatever forms in your head. At the beginning, it might be a list of stuff you need at the grocery store, but keep doing it and trust your gut. Don't just let the thoughts, don't try and think them. I
Don't
want
judge
you to
them.
do it. Don't judge anything you write down. If it's a color, write the color down. If it's a vision that you see in your head, like I see a field of grass or I see some desert, write down, I saw a desert. If it's something you hear, write down the words you hear. Maybe all of a sudden you smell chocolate chip cookies, but your wife isn't cooking chocolate chip cookies. All right, write down the smell. That's how you tap into your intuition. It's called guided writing. So you sit down and you get very quiet. And most people say, well, I'm not getting anything. Well, that's because you're expecting to hear words in your head, and not everybody can hear the words in your head. But some people can see the visions. Some people can smell things. Some people just feel it. You're sitting there. Okay, are you feeling sad? When you're sitting there with your pen and paper, maybe you can't do anything, but all of a sudden you're feeling love. Write that down. Or all of a sudden you're feeling the opposite of love. Write that down. And then think about why you might be feeling that. It's a really, really great exercise to bring out your intuition.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it. So, okay. For somebody who is listening, I like to do this because I feel like I'm constantly putting myself in like other people's shoes and like, what would someone be thinking right now if they're listening to this? And I think something that popped in my head was about like the contrast between intuition and logic, right? So for most people, when they first hear about intuition, they're like, but that doesn't make sense, right? Like if they feel
It
like
never does.
I feel compelled to do this, and it's like, okay, but that doesn't make sense.
Because your brain is trying to talk you out of something your heart's telling you to do. And the brain is saying, no, I think you should do this. And we learned how to do this. And our parents taught us and society taught us. And our gut and our heart is saying, but you're wrong. I want you to go this way. But 99 people out of 100 are going to the left. Yeah, but I don't want you to go that way. That's the problem. Trust the heart. The heart knows the way.
Yeah.
Don't let the brain talk you out of something. Yeah. Mind tries to do it all the freaking time.
Well, I think, right, there's like a place for logic, but also to me, it feels like anything else where it's like, it's worth just trying, right? Like you don't have to say like, I'm just going to listen to my intuition forever, even when it doesn't make sense. Like it's fine. You don't have to commit to it. It's like, just try, see what happens listening to your intuition and see how things work out. I was just talking to my dad yesterday where I'm trying to follow more what I feel, right? For me, it's my intuition. It's
and
like,
did he laugh at you?
Feel like actually he's been kind of on this kick too. So
good for him.
Yeah, no, it's great.
My generation is notorious for, we were taught that you don't trust your heart, you trust your brain. That's what we were taught.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell people, I need you to flip it. Because that idea is backwards. You trust your heart, and then your heart shows you the way, and your brain figures out how to get there. That's how I teach people in business. And my generation, oh yeah, business and life.
I love
and
that.
my generation is going to say, never trust your heart. It's going to lead you the wrong way. Oh, I mean, that's the way it was in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. That's how they were taught.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I'm telling you, with all due respect, it's actually backwards. And the reason why you haven't gotten your ideal life and you haven't gotten to really where you really want to be is because there's a movie playing in the back of your head that you don't know is there. And it's just playing. And you would turn it off if you knew it was there, but you don't know it's there. And you won't know it's there until you start down the path of self-discovery. A lot of people call it shadow work. But that's why I came up with this forgiveness system, because our world is filled with hate. Our world is filled with angry people. And everybody tells you you need to forgive. Everybody. Nobody teaches you how.
Yeah.
And then what if you don't want to? Then what do you do? That's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
That's why I write all my books, because I come up with questions that I need answered. And I went out there and I realized I would forgive. Sure, I've forgiven for a long time. But they never stayed forgiven. That's a problem. You know, you do the work and then you see them at a party and you're mad again. Okay, what's that all about? How do I get it to stick? I don't want to be thinking about my ex all the time. That's nuts.
Okay, so I really want to talk about forgiveness, but I also have a couple more questions about the intuition thing.
Lay it on me.
So as far as I am understanding things, right, like as I'm kind of learning about intuition and stuff, I feel like that it's almost this, because I've been comparing the two, intuition versus logic. It feels like that is the battle that's like happening in our head, is like the logic fighting with the intuition. And would you agree, because this is what my thought is that the reason you don't have your ideal life, whatever it is that you are envisioning for yourself that you want, is because your intuition has been trying to get you to do what you need to do in order to get there, but your logic has been preventing it because it goes, that doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Why should I do that? That's crazy. Years ago, I mean, we're talking 25 years ago, I wrote my first book. And my gut was saying, write a book. Never written a book before. So I ignored it for a very long time. Write a book? How could I write a book? It's a book. How do you write a book? But I couldn't get it out of my head. So I finally decided to listen to my intuition and to listen to the guidance I was given. And I sat down and I just started. So, you know, sometimes your intuition will say one thing and you'll think, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Why would I do that? That's crazy. But it's like a fight between your heart and your brain. Your brain's trying to talk you out of something. Your heart is saying, listen, trust me. I know the way.
Yeah. And
just shut up and follow.
You know what's crazy too is that it's not only your brain that you're fighting against. It's other people's brains. It's other people's
society's brain.
Yes. Yeah. Like when you tell people, if you tell someone this is what I'm going to do because I feel like it, their logical brain is like, no, don't do that thing. That doesn't make sense. I think back to, I was just telling my wife this, and this is kind of what led me down this path, was I was learning a little bit about intuition. And then I started thinking about all of the good things in my life. And I was like, these good things all came when I did something that I felt like doing, even though it didn't make sense at the time.
Bingo! You win the prize. You win. Exactly
and I'm
right.
Like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like I have.
You were in the right place. You were in the right place at the right time. How did you get there? Did you get it because you thought about it? Did you get it because you did the spreadsheets? Did you get it because you learned it in a book? No, your gut told you to go to Starbucks to get a coffee, and somebody you needed to meet was there.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point, is that like my wife, like if I'm on my phone, 50% of the time I'm doing math. I'm like, I have something in my head I'm trying to figure out. I'm doing the math, or I have one of my spreadsheets open or something like that. And like, because that's the type of person that I am. And I realized that like, I keep trying to figure out how, when it's like, that's not what my job is. Right? My job is to listen to my intuition.
You're trying to think your way through your life, and feeling your way through life is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's funny too. What I'll say is, in looking back, I realized I listened to my intuition way more often than I actually thought I did.
Most people do.
Yeah, well, I look back and man, I used to have so many people criticize me, and they would be like, "You're so impulsive. You're always changing your mind, this and that." And I look back and I'm like, I was just doing what I felt. Like I just
Right.
felt like this needed to change, and I changed it. Like I don't know what else to say other than that, right? Now I look back and I'm like, well, I'm glad. Like I mean, I can't tell you how grateful I am for all the decisions I made over the
But
years
they
that I
didn't
just
want you
did
to
what I felt
change.
like.
The reason they sabotaged is they didn't want you to change. They liked the old you. They didn't
Yeah.
like this new version of you. They liked the old you. So they sabotaged it, saying, wait, no, that's not right. I don't want you to do that, because
Yeah.
they like the old you.
Yeah. Well,
And
I
they didn't
was
want to change with you. A lot of the
Yeah.
time, that's what
Yeah.
happens.
Okay, but that's exactly it. I just had another guest on yesterday, and we were talking about like change and growth. And when you change, when you grow, I agree, right? People want to be comfortable, so they want you to stay the way you are. But also, when you change, you are shining a light on what is possible for them, and
Exactly.
and because they haven't done it, that shines a light on the fact that they've settled for the life that they have right now instead of doing what you're doing, which is like following what you feel like doing. Right? Most people go and they shut that voice down, and so if you are following it, that's shining a light on the fact that it's almost like misery loves company, right? Like, you
Exactly.
know what? No, we all have feelings like that. We all feel like, quitting our jobs or moving across the country, but we don't do it because it doesn't make sense. So you better not do it either.
Well,
And I'm saying those very specific examples.
when you change, one of three things is going to happen to the people around you. Jim Rohn has a very famous quote that says, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So when you change, like energy attracts like energy. So new people are going to be attracted to you like a moth to a flame.
Yeah.
However, you're going to get some jackrabbits. I had a lot. You're going to get people in your life that are going to look at you changing and say, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they're going to, the modern term is ghosting, and they're going to ghost you. You're never going to see them again.
Yeah.
And then you've got the people who sometimes they're usually family and very close friends who are looking at it saying, well, I like the old you. I don't want the new you. So they're going to try and sabotage it.
Yeah.
And you get to choose who you want to keep in your life. If and then you're going to get the people who say, oh, I like what you're doing. I'm coming along for the ride. Let's do this.
Yes.
Let's do this. Those are the people, those are your ride and dies. Those are the people you keep.
I love that. So one last thing before we jump into the other, because I do want to talk about the new book. But before we do, I don't think we answered this. Earlier I had asked you about who you feel like your intuition is, and you answered that. But what I'm wondering is, right, like the different things that someone might call it change what that person believes reality is, right? If they believe it's God, then they believe in God, right? But if they believe it's, this higher version of themselves, that might be a different reality. And somebody else believes it's, that they're in a simulation, and that's they're like, the
Matrix.
real them telling them what to do something, right? And so they
Yep.
believe we're in a. So what I'm curious of is like, what do you believe the nature of reality is? Do you believe that? Well, I guess I'll just ask you, what do you believe the nature of reality is then?
That's a big question.
It is.
Well, first of all, you're never going to hear me say I'm psychic, because I don't like the term.
Okay.
I think that term reminds us of a grifter who's just going to con you out of your money. No disrespect intended to anybody who uses the term. I just don't like it.
Sure.
And so I actually use intuitive, and I'm actually a medium as well. So I actually can hear all sorts of things. I've been doing it since I was a very young kid.
Okay.
What is the nature of reality? I think at the end of the day, none of us really knows. But I do know that, in my opinion, there's no such thing as death. We just go from one place to another, like a caterpillar turns into a butterfly.
I see.
So we just go from one dimension to another. So I don't really believe,
yeah.
I have no fear of death at all.
Okay.
But I'm not a fan of pain. So yeah, I kind of think when the time comes, please let me be in my sleep.
Sure.
But sure. I also believe we're not meant to be here alone. So I do believe that they're angels. I do believe that your family who's on the other side is here actively trying to help you.
Interesting.
So I think it takes a village to get through life. And I think you have a village around you on this plane, but I also think you have a team on the other side who are actively trying to help you.
Super interesting. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It's like you said, ultimately, That's really what, like, look, what you said is 100, that's the truth. Like, and I'm putting that in my book, is that like we all have to admit that, like, no matter how confident we are about something, there's always a chance that we could be wrong, because like you said,
Nobody
we just
knows.
ultimately don't know. We don't know. And I like what you said about the caterpillar and the butterfly. It makes me wonder if caterpillars know the
But
next
do you
thing.
know about the
If they just think, my
caterpillar and
friend just died in the cocoon and then this thing with wings flew away, like,
but you
maybe
know
they have
what
no idea.
here's what happens in the cocoon. Here's what people don't know. The
Oh,
caterpillar has to turn into a big liquid goo.
yes.
And then it turns into a butterfly.
Yes.
So it's not this clean kind of thing. You go from a caterpillar to goo, you're a complete sloppy mess,
Yes.
to you're a butterfly.
It's not like it
And
just
that's
grows
what
wings.
right. So that's what humans are doing. We're going from a caterpillar, and then we trust our intuition, and we decide we want to really change our life. So then that's what a lot of people call shadow work, and it's not easy. And then you turn into a butterfly.
Oh yeah. Okay. So did you say the shadow work is tied to the forgiveness topic, correct?
Well, yeah, it can be. Yeah, shadow work it's not easy.
Okay. Well, can you explain?
But
So if it's not like totally tied to that, so then before we get into it, can you just explain a little bit for somebody who doesn't know, including me?
shadow work means that I'm working on creating a better life for myself, and I'm going to I'm going to get rid of all my demons. I am holding on to a lot of anger about my past. I'm holding on to anger about the bully in childhood, or the kid in college who took my idea, or whatever it is. And I'm going to purposely look at my past, and I'm going to get rid of it. That's what it means. You're doing shadow work. You're kind of going through memory by memory, and you're transmuting it.
Interesting. Okay.
Let me bring some science into it.
Sure.
There was there's a study done in Japan called the Japanese Water Study. And you can Google it, and it's a guy named Matsumoto, something like that.
Okay.
And what he did is he took several containers of water.
Yeah.
One container of water, he didn't do anything except talk to it, spoke love to it, spoke beautiful words to it. The other container of water, he spewed hate at it, absolute hate.
Yeah.
He then froze the water and put it under a microscope. The water that he spoke love to had these beautiful, beautiful snowflake-like transformations. They're right online. They're beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
The water that got hate, black, brown, nasty kind of malformations. Why am I telling you this? The human body is 95% water.
Yes.
So when you are bitter and angry and your self-talk is awful, what do you think you're doing to the water cells in your body? That's why people say anger is toxic, because you're literally making the water cells in your body sick.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why shadow work is to remove the anger, to remove all that toxicity, so you can become your authentic self.
I love that. Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff about water before, like you said, about it almost like holding on to like the energy of whatever you're projecting into it. And I've even seen stuff of like images where it's almost like it'll like project, like it'll save an image into the water, like they freeze it and you can say, look, there's the leaf, or there's like a bear or whatever, or something like that.
They've replicated that water study many, many times, and nobody gets a different response. Everybody gets the same thing. Yeah. And many have tried to dismiss it, and they can't, because everybody keeps getting the same response. Did the same thing with plants. I have a plant downstairs. It's 30 years old. I call him Grandpa.
See, this is what I love. I feel like, remember when I was asking before about the nature of reality? I feel like all of us, like, we can speculate and we think we know. Like we live in this time where everyone just thinks everything's known. Like, it's just like, we know, like, you know, trust science. Like, science knows. And you're just like, I'm not saying science doesn't know good things, but science by definition is to question things. Like, that is what science is questioning everything, you know? And so to me, I'm like, I don't think we're ever going to know everything, but that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like, there's always more to know.
If you pay attention to all the negativity and you watch CNN and you listen to all the other shootings and you dive into that stuff and you're knee deep, you're going to kind of feel sick and tired. You're not going to feel very well. You're going to probably get the flu. I kid you not, because it's going to affect your energy field.
Sure.
I don't ignore what's going on in the world, but I'm not taking a bath in it either. I kind of, I avoid the news. My sons will
Yeah.
tell me what I need to know, but I have
Yeah.
kind of turned my back on negativity
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what that
because
makes me
it's too
think of,
much.
yeah, what popped in my head when you were saying that was when we were talking about the hurricane. I think the news is, you know, in certain ways a good thing, right? Because we can be aware of
Yeah,
what's happening in other places. And I'm not saying, because like I agree with you, I don't watch the news. Um, but what it makes me think of is almost like they're on their own path over there. Like they
they are.
have their journey and they're on it. Like, why are you so preoccupied with someone else's journey? Like,
It's their journey.
focus on your own. And it's almost the same thing with like TV and movies. And don't get me wrong, I love TV, I love movies. Like, I can get really, really wrapped up in stories, but that's another distraction from your own experience, right? You're
Right.
like, you're putting yourself in other people's shoes constantly to avoid being in your own shoes. Like, you know how you were saying, like, okay, sit with yourself and like do this. Like, you're only saying that because most people never do it. You never
That's
sit with
true.
yourself, right? You're constantly preoccupied with like what's happening in other people's lives, whether you realize it or not. Whether you're
That's
watching the
right.
news, TV, movies, even reading like books. Like, I love reading books, but again, it's like you're preoccupying your mind with other people's journeys instead
That's
of
right.
being present in your own.
And then people say, well, you have to meditate. Okay, I'm bad at meditating because whenever I try to meditate, my brain turns itself on and I can't get it to shut up. So my form of meditating is I'll take a walk and I will just let my brain do whatever it wants, and I'll let whatever thoughts want to come into it, they let them fly. And I really just kind of be, to be honest. I don't stop the thoughts, but I will sit in a quiet room for like 5 minutes or as long as I can stand it. And I just kind of be, to be honest. And if you can't stand the silence, we'll put some music on and just sit there and really get into your favorite song and literally dive into the music. That's a form of meditation.
Yeah.
Just because people meditate, they say, well, you got to follow your breath, which is a good way to meditate. My husband does it. Just count your breaths. Okay, I've tried that. Then my brain kicks in and says, wait, no, you got to go upstairs and do this, this, and this. Never works. So my take is I just have to be walking or I have to have music or something. That's a form of meditating. And that's fine.
Totally.
Everybody is different.
Yeah, I love that.
We're all
It
snowflakes.
reminds me
Everybody.
of the different. Yeah, it reminds me of the different things you were saying before, where people have the hearing or the seeing or the knowing. Like, we're all different. I think we have to be able to admit that, you know, and like that's okay. Like, let's accept that difference.
Being different is
figure
okay.
out what works for you.
Being different is okay. When I was a kid, they were always trying to stuff me in a box and make me like all the other kids. That's why I was bullied, because you couldn't put me in a box because I was different.
Yeah.
People don't like different.
Yeah.
And they get scared of different.
Sure.
So I became a rebel. I became, well, if you think I'm a rebel and a screw up, okay, maybe I'll become a rebel and a screw up, if that's what you think I am. Took a long time for me to come to grips with that.
I feel like part of in you saying that, it made me realize, I think part of like the journey of life is like accepting yourself more and more over time. Like, you learn about yourself and you accept it. And
but you're not broken. Everybody says I have to fix myself. Exactly. You're not broken. You're perfect the way you are.
Exactly.
You're perfect.
That's what I'm saying.
Everybody's perfect. There's nothing to fix. You're perfect. The only thing we have to do is learn more. The more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn. You're not broken. You're perfect. Just keep learning.
Yeah. Keep
going. Keep growing. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
But you're not broken. There's nothing to fix.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Okay, let's talk about forgiveness.
Well, the thing about forgiveness, and the reason why everybody avoids it, is because on a 10 scale, with 10 being unforgivable dumpster fire and 1 being an easy person to forgive, everybody watching and listening to this broadcast is thinking of their number 10. Everybody. And that's fair. because they hurt you really bad. That's why nobody wants to talk about forgiveness, because it's too painful. And I am the only one on the planet that's going to tell you, you don't have to forgive the unforgivable. You don't. Because there's other people, places, and things that you can forgive before you even get to that dumpster fire. You don't have to forgive the unforgivable. There are some things in this world that's unforgivable. But in my book, the system I have, it's an actual step-by-step system. I want you to start with the easy ones. The person that cut you off on I-95 yesterday. Come on now, you can forgive them. The person who took your parking spot. Come on now. The passenger who didn't tip you. You can forgive that person. Maybe they were hungry. You can forgive the person who cut you off in aisle 5 of the grocery store. Come on now. You can forgive that person. The easy ones. Start with the easy ones and you work your way up. Now, a couple things. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I want a relationship with you. I probably don't. Forgiveness does not mean repair. It's selfish. You do it for you. And the person you're forgiving doesn't even have to know. You don't have to reach out and you don't have to make amends. You could do this in the privacy of your own home. Nobody has to know, which means you can forgive dead people. Because if they're alive and well in your head, you can forgive it. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean I'm giving you a pass. It does not mean I'm giving in. You're still wrong. You're still a dumpster fire. You still have to make amends. It means here's the simple truth. I want you out of my head. That's it. Yeah. I want to stop thinking about you. I want you out of my head. And the special sauce to the whole thing is energy. I have a lot of people who come up to me and say, I did forgive them. You did the work. You did forgive them, but they're not staying forgive them. You go to a party, you see them again, you're right back down there again. And you remember everything virtually immediately and you're mad again. That's because you didn't forgive the energy. Einstein proved that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So when you get mad, you think it leaves your mouth and it magically dissipates into the world. It does not. It hangs around in your energy field until you clear it. So by clearing the energy, that's going to really help.
And clearing the energy in this case is forgiving and following these steps that you're talking about.
What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you sit down with that pen and paper, and I'm going to have you write a list of all the people you think you want to forgive who did you wrong. The list could be as long as you want it to. And then I want you to rate them from 1 to 10. 10 being horrible, 1 being super easy. And I want you to really think about the people from the sandbox when you were a little kid all the way to present day. And then if you have 20 number 5s, I don't care. That's fine. Skip a number, I don't care. Skip a number. I really don't care. But what I really care about is I want you to start with number 1. Put your hand in your heart, because the energy behind the words is the most important. The words are just for us stupid humans. And the mantra of the book, I'm a very simple soul. You don't have to chant unless you want to. You don't have to hold any crystals unless that's your thing. It's a very simple thing. Alone in the room, turn your phones off. I know this bugs people. Turn your phone off. There's an off button. And if you don't want to turn the phone off, mute it. Don't vibrate, because if it dances on the desk, you're going to want to know who it is. I want you alone in the room for like 10 minutes. And then I want you to say, I completely forgive Martha. I forgive the energy around Martha. I completely forgive myself. I forgive the energy around myself. I completely forgive the energy around the entire thing. Amen. So help me God. Godspeed. End it any way you like. And forgiveness is like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's like an onion, and you're going to be clearing the first few layers of the onion. So you might come up with somebody, and after you forgive somebody, I want you to check in. You still mad? Okay. What number is it? Did you clear it? Okay. Cross them off. And this happened to a friend of mine. We were in a session together because I'm a forgiveness coach, and she forgave a level 3 person. And then she checked in and the person jumped to a 7. She was even more angry. Well, that's because the brain is a beautiful, marvelous instrument. It protects you. And it looked at her and said, okay, Catherine's ready for me to open up the back closet in his mind that's been playing all these years. And it's going to flood you with memories that you didn't remember. So you're going to get mad again. So it's like an onion. You're going to have to keep making passes at it.
Okay.
And forgiving the unforgivable, it is possible, but you're going to have to take bites of it.
Yeah. I really like that comparison to like the onion and starting with the small ones, because it's
That's right.
almost as if like the lack of forgiveness is like this ball of energy, like you were saying, that's like in your field, and you're like, look, you're trying to get to the center of this thing, but there are layers to even get to that point. So like, don't worry about forgiving the unforgivable. Like, just
Right.
start with the outer layers. You'll get there eventually, but don't even worry about it right now. That's not the point.
Let me show you a visual. Anybody listening to the broadcast, hop over to YouTube, but I'm about to hold a coffee cup right in front of my face.
Okay.
This cup represents anger, bitterness, horrible self-talk. But look at my body language. I can conduct my life. I can manage my anger. Look at my body language. I can still live life. This is easy. I can manage my anger. But humans irritate other humans, don't they? And the longer I hold on to it, the more stuff I'm going to be putting into the cup. So at some point, now look at my body language. I'm using two hands to hold up the cup. I still can conduct my life, but the anger is starting to permeate my language. It's starting to affect my brain. I'm starting to think about it more. And the longer I hold on to it, well, now it's right in front of my face. It's all I can think about. It's all I talk about. I am missing opportunities. My dream job just walked by me. I didn't see it because I'm too focused on the anger. I'm complaining. I'm getting sick. So my system is going to allow you, by starting with the easy ones, your cup is now it's off to the side. Why? Because you forgave some of the easy ones. You forgave the people you labeled a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. And if you keep up with the system, eventually you'll be able to put your cup down. And now look at my body language. Now I can live as my authentic self. Why? Because I'm paying attention now. I'm paying attention to the world around me. I'm paying attention to my intuition. Anger is a shield to your intuition. Very hard to follow your intuition if you're just focused on the anger. If I put my anger down and I can actually deal with it, now my intuition is in full bloom. And now I can live my authentic life because now I'm paying attention.
Wow. That was a great explanation. To be honest, I don't really have any questions. I feel like you explained that so great.
Well, how do you forgive the unforgivable? Now, be aware that yourself, this is the first book of 3, and the second one is going to be, I'm writing it right now, How to Forgive Yourself.
Yeah,
but how to forgive the unforgivable. Let's use one of my memories as an example. Let's take my father, who was one of my number 10s.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to forgive my father for many, many years. And I kind of didn't even want to forgive the energy around him. I was just too, excuse my language, goddamn mad at him.
Yeah.
So I picked apart the memory. One of the things Einstein also proved is everything on our planet has energy around it, including my little silver microphone. Everything has energy around it. So I picked apart the memory. I picked a memory of Christmas, and I forgave the table we sat at. I'm serious. I forgave the energy around the table. I forgave the chairs, the energy around the chairs. I forgave the people. Let me give you another example. Let's say you're driving down the road and you pass your childhood grammar school where you were bullied, and you're not even paying attention. The light's red, but you kind of see it out of the corner of your eye. And for some reason, that movie that's playing in the back of your head that you don't know about, it kicks in. And by the time you get to work, you're grumpy. And everybody notices you're kind of off. They say, what's wrong? And you're like, I don't know. I guess I didn't get enough sleep. It wasn't because you didn't get enough sleep, although you might have. It's because you saw the school and you got reminded of a time in your life that was horrific. So what do? Pick apart the memory. You take that memory and you forgive the school building and the energy around the building. You forgive the table, the bed, the chair, the park, the people who stood around and didn't help you. Pick apart the memory. And by doing that, will you eventually be able to forgive your bully? Was I eventually able to forgive my father? I was, but it took months. Eventually, I could forgive my dad. You're not going to get a number 10 level person down to a 1 overnight. It will take a minute. You could get a 10 down to a 9, down to an 8. that kind of thing. But in the meantime, you're already working on the easy ones. So your life is starting to open up. It's starting to feel better. You're not getting as sick as anymore because you're changing the water molecules within your body. So you're starting to feel better. You're eating healthier. And those number 10s, if you can never get to that number 10, that's fine. Forgive what you can and keep going.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a lot of people who maybe like have health problems that they're trying to solve it, you know, the traditional way, that maybe they have some forgiveness that they need to take part in?
I didn't say that. You did. Yes. Yes, I do. Actually, yes, I do.
Okay.
I think unforgiveness causes a lot of damage to the human body.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. And if you start, it's not a magic pill. I had stage 3 breast cancer. And how did I survive it? Well, I combined what I'm talking about with chemotherapy and radiation. I listened to the doctors, but I also did forgiveness. I actually sat down and forgave breast cancer. I actually said, I forgive breast cancer. I forgive the energy around breast cancer. I forgave the chemo chair, radiation. You can forgive anything. You can forgive your football team for losing last week.
Yeah.
You can forgive politicians, dare I say. You can forgive, we won't go there. You can forgive the war in the Middle East. What is it going to do for the war in the Middle East? Absolutely nothing. But if it's in your head, you can get rid of it. It's going to do wonders for you.
Yeah.
It's going to free you. What's it going to do for the other person? Not a thing. As women, we want our exes to be as miserable as we are. And you know they're not. They're not. They're conducting their life. They're dating again. Damn them. You know, they're just living life. But you're thinking about it. There is a beautiful, wonderful quote. One of my favorite quotes in the world. It's by Buddha. And Buddha said, hatred is like drinking poison and wanting the other person to die. I love that quote. It's very clear. It's very clear.
I love it.
I love that quote.
Yeah, I ask these questions about like health and stuff because I assume that it's going to be a wide range of people that are going to hear this episode, right? And some people are super open-minded and some people aren't. But I think it's important to just explore, right? Like no one's going to sit here and say, just like you, right? You're like, I'm not going to tell you that is why you have your health problem, but like, what's the harm in trying? Like, what's the harm in trying? Like, are there people that you're like holding on, you know, you're holding on to anger towards people?
Sure.
And if there is, it's like, well, why not try to just forgive them? Why not? Maybe that is what's causing your health problems.
Let's talk about that real briefly.
Okay.
I get people talking to me saying, I have nobody to forgive. That's the first type of person sometimes I get. Okay. Say the following for the next week. I completely forgive myself for not being able to forgive and the energy around that thought. Say that every day for a week, and I promise those back closets in your mind, one of them's going to open. Then I get them, and it's usually men. Don't email me. It is what it is, people. I have built my career on my story. I've made a lot of money. I'm thinking of one specific person, obviously. Okay. I've made a lot of money and I've gotten where I am. I've gotten a lot of success on my story and on my anger. Okay, let's talk about that. Sure. Yeah, you have. Let's say you're walking into a hotel. You got a choice of 2 elevators. You choose the one on the left. And you want to go to the 75th floor. And you walk in and some punk kid has pressed every button between 1 and 75. You can get to the 75th floor, but you're going to be a broken mess by the time you get up there because you're going to have to stop at every single solitary floor. Wouldn't you rather take the express? It's like choosing between the express train or the local. The local will get you there, I promise you. Wouldn't you rather take the express? I'm just saying. Happiness, joy, and love and forgiveness will get you twice as far, twice as fast than the hate train. You can still get there that way. And many people have. Sure. But it's painful. Sure. Like it's really painful. I'd rather do it the other way. Yeah. You know, it's like the universe looks at us and say, we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way. Either way, you're going, baby.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So when I think about like the people that are listening and maybe people who like have health problems. Sorry, I keep going back to this because I think of certain people in my life, people that I've known that
Mm-hmm.
had health problems over the years. Like I just think as I was growing up and stuff like that. And a lot of them were very practical in the sense
Right?
that like they probably would have written something like this off. But then I sit here and I think, man, like I wonder if, what would have happened with these people had they just maybe had a little bit more of an open mind about it and think, hey, maybe my thoughts are influencing my health, right? And it's not just about the math, like I was saying earlier. 1 + 1 is 2, right? Because like I recently this popped in my head is how like obviously I said this earlier about science. Science is great, but I also feel like science can be a distraction, and
Sure.
I say this because I think a good example is when you're in love. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
everybody can look at the science of being in love, right? If you want to, they could be like, it's this chemical, and this much of this chemical, right? But when you're not in love, no one's going to the doctor to try to get the chemicals rebalanced to a certain amount, right?
That's right.
But when someone's depressed and they're like, it's a chemical imbalance, they're not looking at their life. They're like, let me go to the doctor and try to get these chemicals rebalanced.
More pills.
But you get what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
it's
I
this
do.
to me. I'm like, I don't understand. This is the same thing. Like, it's obvious, and this is not like a judgment. I'm saying this from my own experience, bro. Your life just sucks. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
but it's also like there's a book called by Sean Aker called the Happiness Advantage. I think that's
okay.
what it's called. And Sean is brilliant. If you've not read the book, it's a great book. And what he says is we tend to bump our happiness. So I'm going to be happy when I graduate from college. Okay, well, I'm a genie and I'm going to grant you your wish. Bang, you've graduated from college. Are you happy? Well, no. I'm going to be happy when I get married. Okay,
Yeah.
bam, you're married. Are you happy yet? No. I'm going to be happy when I get my dream job. All right, boom, you've got your dream job. Are you happy yet? See, we keep bumping our happiness. When are you going to be happy? When you're 95 years old and putting your teeth in a cup?
Well, the reason
Come on
why,
now.
yeah, no, I agree. The reason why I mentioned like the depression and the being in love thing is because we have this again as a society. I don't blame anybody for it because we've learned stuff through science, and so we want to fix everything with science.
Oh yeah.
Instead of realizing that maybe it was something that was not, like us, it wasn't a scientific thing that caused this effect. Just like with love, right? No one's going out to get pills to be in love, right? Because you recognize that being in love is something that happens between two people. It's like it's something that you create
That's right.
in the external world, and then it causes the feelings inside of you. But with depression, people can't seem to make that connection. Like, no, you need to do things in the real world that will then affect those chemicals. Okay, that's just my take on it. I'm not a doctor.
No, but
People can be mad at me, whatever. But I'm saying this from the sense of what we're talking about with forgiveness and your health, right? What I'm saying is
they won't be mad at you. Think of the water. Think of the water molecules in your body.
Yeah, that's not the energy I'm giving off.
No, but when you're happy, you're affecting the water molecules in your body. You're releasing all those chemicals, aren't you? When you're depressed, your self-talk is horrible. You're angry. You're bitter.
True.
What are you doing to the water molecules? You're literally making yourself sick.
So true. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry. I was saying all of that to say that like when it comes to people's health, like it's very easy to look at it in the same way that people look at depression, instead of maybe thinking, is there something else in my life that's causing this effect, right? Is it something externally that has actually caused this to happen inside of my body? And maybe it is, right? Maybe it is the fact that you have this anger towards this person and you can't forgive. Maybe it is something in your head that's causing that in your body. So anyway, that's all. That's the connection I made when you said it.
There's other ways to heal yourself besides medicine and pills and more pills and more pills and medicine and more pills.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it through diet. There's a way to do it through forgiveness and clearing that anger out of your body.
Yeah.
If you've got something really bad, are you going to have to take pills and medicine? I did. I couldn't have
exactly.
I couldn't have cleared it without the doctors. I'd be dead.
Yes.
But I also supplemented it with everything I'm telling you. So
Yes.
I combined both medicines, and that's how
Yes.
I healed myself. I listened to the doctors, and I also listened to my gut.
Yeah. And I think that that's kind of like my message behind this is like, I'm not saying like disregard science at all. That's not what I mean. What I
No,
mean is that, is there possibly more to it than just the pills, right? Than just the science aspect of it. And I think what you've talked about is like that. I think that there's proof right there, you know?
100%.
So if people want to read your book, if they want to follow you, if they want to know more, how do they do that?
Well, I do for 2 of the books. My younger son helped me do the audiobook, and we're still
Oh,
talking to
nice.
each other. So there's a good thing. It's Amazon has all of my books, the audiobook, the
Okay.
ebooks, and the paperback. And if you go to my website, KatharineGiovanni.com, and Catherine, thanks to my mother, is spelled a little odd. Thanks, Mom. Katharine Giovanni.com. Spelled a little differently.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that, like, I could see it. They don't know that, but it's perfect that you spelled it. Catherine, I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm so glad that you came on. It's like I told you, when I say that, I genuinely mean it. Like, this is stuff that's been on my mind, and then you come on and we're talking about it. I'm like, wow, it couldn't have been more perfect. So seriously, thank you so much for coming on. And like I had mentioned earlier, I'm writing a book too. Well, I'm writing a book currently. It's not released yet, but eventually it will be. It's at the same, it'll be at howtobeaperson.co. That's my website where people can, you know, you mentioned, hey, if you want to watch this, you can go watch it. And, you know, if you go to that website, you'll be able to get the video of everything and all of that stuff. So, Catherine.
Don't let people talk you out of things. And certainly when it comes to your writing, don't let people, including me, talk you out of anything. Just write. People always think when they're writing, there's a certain science behind it. I have to do chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4.
Yeah.
Just write, my friend. Just write.
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. Thank you so much,
My pleasure.
Catherine. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for being on, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate it. For everything I have to offer, visit howtobeaperson.co.